It's time to go live, and we're here to say that it is Sunday, January 4th. That's right, it is 2026. We are 4 days into the new year, and we are officially on episode 52 of the Write a Book with Me series, from concept to completion. Episode 52. I can't believe it. We are flying through. We are flying through. Oh, we got Hey, what's up, flowers? Phone wouldn't let me see the last option, but I'm not changing anyway. Oh, you mean on the poll? Yes, yeah, we're getting right into it. The poll today is going to be, what is the drafting myth that backfired most for you, or you feel would, just in case you haven't gotten to this point. We have speed matters more than depth. We have outlining will kill creativity. We have pantsing equals talent. And then we have draft events must be linear. I would love to hear your thoughts, and we will obviously go over that at the end of the hour. As far as what today's show is, like I said, we are on episode 52 of Write a Book with Me, from concept to completion. We are getting into it today. And you're probably wondering, but Thomas, what are we talking about? Well, first off, we always say, hello, Cindy. We always say hello to everyone. We always talk to the comments. We're very interactive here, so feel free to interact. But more importantly, let's get to the screen sharing of the event. Boop, boop, ba-doop, boop, boop. There we go. All right. So, what's this? I don't like that. All right, there we go. All right, so as always, we have been writing with the Thomas J. Bellezza writing process. This is only my process. This is not the right process. This is just one of many. It could be right for you. We don't know. It is right for me, and it is always changing, and it is malleable, as all things should be. But more importantly, I'm just showing behind the scenes on the screen in real time. We have been flying through the process. And by flying, I mean it took us a year, but we were only doing 1 hour a week every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that, we consider it basically I did 51 hours. And that got us through our brainstorming, character arcs, short form outlining, all that. You can go back to the beginning of the series. Very easy to find it. And watch all these videos, and it'll teach you a little insight. But we are on alpha readers today. And today I decided that I'm going to go over what alpha reading is. I'm going to show you some things you could do as an alpha reader, because you should be building relationships with other writers and developing these skills so you can interact and also learn. You know, you learn from reading other people's. But more importantly, how do you utilize alpha readers? Because most writers that I speak to only use beta readers. And it's usually, and not always, but usually, what is an alpha reader? So we're going to talk about that today. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Wavy wave waves. Hey, Diana. Happy New Year, everyone. What's up, JK? JK. All right, everyone. So we are going to get into it. And like I said, we are, today is the only day we're going to do alpha reader stuff. And then, which means that we're going to go into revising the zero drafts. Which means we're going to go in and we're going to play a little bit. We're going to not necessarily write prose next week, but we are going to start playing and writing and cleaning things up, which is different than organizing the notes. But with that said, boop, okay. So I wrote out some things I wanted to talk about. I got it on screen so you can visually see it. Is it going to be in the way? Oh, good, 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 good. Just finished eating lunch. Thai food. Can't go wrong with Thai food. You got to get that Thai food. Oh, woo! All right, let's do it. Let's do it. So the first thing, I'm just gonna give a couple notes. I'm gonna actually show you questions. I'm gonna show you alpha questions you should be asking your readers, and I'm gonna be showing, which is also to give you insight into what you should be looking at. Okay, sounds good. Send me some food my way. Can't go wrong with a little Thai food. Apologize, no soda today. Trying to clean out my system, as they say, you know, fresh the soul up. All right, yes, but in my case, I've eaten it twice, once last week and another this week. You can't eat it too much, you know what I'm saying? Just for everybody's eating. Now I want to eat. All right, let's talk about it. So these are things to keep in mind being an alpha reader. Your job as an alpha reader, first and foremost, it's not on the screen, but I am going to repeat it. Why would you want to be an alpha reader? I'm a writer. I just want to write my books. I just want to get into the groove. I don't care about other people, right? Greetings, Ro. But it's not so much that maybe you don't care about people. I don't have time, right? That's the mentality. I don't have time. But there's a few benefits to being an alpha reader. One, you get to see unpolished work. You get to see the rawness of things. You get to see how writers start, where it starts, before it gets into the prettiness of it. But the other thing is you're starting to utilize a very important tool, the analytical tool of the writer's mind. Because when you're working on your own stuff, and yeah, I get it, you analyze your own stuff, you read it, you take notes. But when you're reading someone else's, there's something missing, the bias. You're not emotionally connected to the piece you're reading when it's somebody else's. So this opens your writer's eye up a little bit more than if you were solely working on your own stuff. Because you already know what you wrote. So it's very hard to be missing the connecting dots. You know that, oh, this is setting up XYZ. This thing in chapter 3 is setting up that, right? You already know it because you're connecting the dots. When you're reading someone else's, that analytical brain is getting a little workout because you have to connect the pieces in real time. So, with that said, hey, what's up, SB? Hey, Hannah Hot. I went to London with my coworker, restaurant in Washington. Food was amazing. Well, you said Mexican food, so that is definitely yum yums. So, my point is, it is good to get in some alpha reading and beta reading, but alpha reading gives you an inside look into the process of other writers because we should always be malleable. We should always be looking for new things. We should always be trying to find what can work best for us as writers. But the more important element is that you're able to analyze writing, because analyzing writing gives you the intuition to see or feel things as you're working in real time on your own stuff. So one of the things that I used to get hired a lot for screenwritings is I would just come in and my job was to basically fix it, clean it up, not just like clean up the dialogue and stuff, but clean it, like, does it make sense? I would have to reverse engineer it, all these things, right? I'd give notes. And that was a tool that I had to learn, right? And then that helped me with my work. That helps me when I work with other people. Okay. So that's the foundation of becoming an alpha reader for other people. It is beneficial to your style as a writer, the way you look at things, and of course, you get to build community. One of the things that I hear often is, I can't afford an editor, or I can't afford a copy editor, or I can't afford someone to do my cover work. But you can exchange work. You could say, hey, listen, I've learned how to alpha read. I'm good at alpha reading or beta reading. I'll do that for you if you do this for me, right? Or whatever the case is. You bada, okay? So it is a skill that can also help you if you have a budget. But let's go into things, all right? First, let's get to Hannah. I actually got done with, hold on, my story. Now I'm going to be working on my story. Actually, I started on it last night. Woo! Yeah! Congratulations, Hannah. It also helps you connect with, yes, 100%. Community. Plus, to serve others, builds character. Yes, I agree. It does matter to me. Team rise together, work, grow, rise together. It's all about building these relationships because, being isolated is not that fun. All right, so things to keep in mind while being an alpha reader. Your job is to analyze structure, not experience. Hey, Sean, what's up? Happy New Year to you. Structure is far different than experience. Experience is what beta readers do. Experience is, did I like it or did I not like it? Do I like the characters or not like the characters? I wanted to know more about this. I wanted to know more about that. It's like if you were reading a book and you were just telling a friend, well, it isn't just like, but you are reading it to get excited about it. And you want to be excited as a beta reader. But as an alpha reader, it doesn't matter if you like it or not. Your job isn't there to like the book. Your job isn't there to enjoy the read. It's unpolished. There may be some prose, there may be some immersion, there'll definitely be dialogue, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is written to impress. It's not there to suck you in. In fact, if you have an alpha reader and one of their notes is, I think you should have went deeper into the city. Like, I want to feel the city more. Probably not an alpha reader. That is a beta reader response. I really wish I could have smelled the food, or I really wish I could have felt how cold it was. That is beta reader. Structural is always going to be the important stuff. What's working and not working for the plot's foundation. Okay? As you're I'm gonna show you examples using the sci-fi thing, but ultimately the gist is, as you're reading, you're taking notes of what is happening. Okay. If we did, in fact, if we went to chapter 1, so if I was reading this, right, and I go, so stars flash by in a dance of million and one, shining on the brights of my eyes as I flew through space and time. I jolted about in my seat, shimmering in the body of my ship. The soft make of these old cushions didn't relax the bumping around on my ass. I loosened my grip enough to allow the handle to adjust to the incoming stop of light speed. Now, first and foremost, this would most likely be, as it is, a zero draft, right? It is not polished. There's not a lot of immersion. It's just straightforward, right? But as the alpha reader, I would write that the protagonist is, coming in from light speed. That's all I got to write. One line, right? This word, I wouldn't see that, but the device really gave me issues as this isn't the newest model, Vector Alpha Drive vessel, but it's what I could afford, right? So then I would write down, oh, I learned that she has an old ship, a Vector Alpha Drive vessel, right? So you would just start just notating things. You wouldn't be writing out a thesis. You wouldn't be writing out a huge thing. But your job is to map all that out. And the reason you're doing that is because at the end, you look at it and you say, what am I learning? What plot is happening? And a lot of people saying, well, what's plot? Plot is literally anything that happens. So again, if we go back real quick, plot is she is coming in from light speed. Plot is she bought, well, that's exposition. She pulled back on the lever, drawing light speed device to shut off. She turned on the guiding jets, lining her ship. Okay, she's trying to dock. That's plot. Laura speaks to the computer asking if deranged. Laura repeats herself. The ship is a yes. This is technically not plot because we're learning about the world. There's computers that talk. Laura, all these other things. Shakes, patting the dasher. Sure, buddy. This is still character, not necessarily plot. But the plot would be she is talking to her computer. And that might be something, right? So that's really what alpha readers are trying to look at. They're taking a chapter and they are just bullet pointing out any information they discover. Because remember, it's plot, character, world. I learned this about the plot. I learned this about the world. I learned this about the character. And your job is, after you get a couple of chapters, you look at it and you start trying to connect things. Is this working? Did they mention this plot point again? And for example, let's say the first chapter mentions dire wolves, okay, in Game of Thrones, all right? But we don't hear about the dire wolves again until chapter 7. That would be a note. The alpha reader would be like, hey, these dire wolves disappeared. Their kids aren't even playing with them. They're not training them. The father said, you got to train them and take care of them, Their kids aren't training them and take care of them. If the king shows up and says, you want to be the hand of the king in chapter whatever, 5 or 6, and then you don't hear about, we're not really learning what it means to be the hand of the king, that would be something you would point out as an alpha reader. Oh, what we got here? Look at this. Hey, ciao bella, well, ciao bella, ciao bella. Everyone, don't forget to boop that like button. You're very loved, Emma. You know that? I'm cooking at the moment. By the way, ATM, I just want you to know that's also an acronym. But I'll try to join the fun properly later. Please bring us some pizza. So an alpha reader is a type of... No. Developmental editing is more or less, they come in before you write to help organize the rhythm. And then if they come in after you write, they could come in at any point. Zero draft, first draft, second draft, whatever. Right? They're looking to make sure it makes sense on a deeper level. An alpha reader is looking at what they see. So they're giving you their impression, their perception of what they see. A developmental editor will make sense of the connections. What does that mean? What is the biggest difference with that? An alpha reader is coming in and going, hey, I just want you to know, I really am interested in the wolf stuff with the dire wolves, but I haven't heard anything about the dire wolves for 5 chapters. A developmental editor will come in and go, what is the purpose of the dire wolves? Yeah, we don't see them for 7 chapters, right? That's something you definitely have to fix. But how did the dire wolves connect to? And then they go, hey, the dire wolf mother died while eating the buck, right? And the buck is the sign of the king. And the king, right? The Baratheon family, right? So, oh, we're having themes connect. Great. That theme connects. That is foreshadowing that, spoiler alert, by the Starks, which is the wolf. The wolf head is the Stark symbol. The wolf getting involved with the buck is going to lead to death and destruction. Okay, now, do those themes follow? Yes, because what happens with Bran? Bran sees something happening with the Baratheon wife, the queen, and then something happens with Bran. So a developmental editor is making sure that themes are connecting, that narrative beats and nodes are connecting. There's a big difference between an alpha reader and a developmental editor. Alpha readers don't have to worry about it connecting. They're seeing if it is connecting. Again, if direwolves show up in chapter 1, but they don't show up again to chapter 7, their response should be, hey, I'm not hearing enough about the direwolves. I feel like we need more information on them by the time we get to chapter 7. That is very different than a developmental editor. I really hope that helped. All right, so, but alpha readers versus beta readers, alpha readers are looking for the big picture feedback, plot, character, world. So that's why you're taking those notes as an alpha reader, or why you're looking for those notes from an alpha reader. Again, it is not a developmental edit. They're not going deep into the connection of everything. They're just saying, do I see it? Do I see this character doing anything? This character made no choices. I don't understand this world information, right? So, for example, if they have magic in there and they use magic, and you say, "Hey, I don't understand how magic works," that's an alpha reader note. However, if the author comes back and says, "Well, it's soft magic," that's something to keep in mind, because soft magic doesn't necessarily have to be explained. However, you as the alpha reader would identify if in-world logic still makes sense for the magic. For example, if to shoot a fireball, if to shoot a fireball, you need to light a match and then burn a piece of paper with the magic word on it, and it forms a fireball, and then you have to do this. All right. Then later on in the book, somebody else just says blah blah blah, and a fireball just appears 5 feet in front of them and shoots out. Inconsistency with the soft magic. All right. But that also has to do with world politics. Basically, if you say you have a king, and the word king and queen for the majority of the world already connects to the concept of what a king and queen is. If that concept is different in your world, that needs to be clear as well. And an alpha reader would see that. So basically, if an alpha reader believes that a king rules a monarch, but in reality, the king and queen are just figureheads, and really the jester controls the kingdom through the king and queen, because that is just the system. And it doesn't make sense. Like, why is the jester controlling the king and queen? Like, I don't understand. Like, that would have to be explained, and an alpha reader would point it out. Go, hey, I noticed the jester is like the one ruling. Is that because the king and queen are easily manipulated? And then if you were the author, are like, wait a minute, no, the system I created was the jesters are actually in control. The kings are the figureheads. If that's not clear, I have to make that clear. All right. And again, with plot, if the plot is that ultimately, I want to get home, back to my family, and then throughout the entire narrative, we don't even hear about them missing the family. For example, the story that we're writing, If she did, you notice how like I tried to add points where she's thinking about a father, she's thinking about a family. There's moments where she's reflecting, and that's because she misses her family. So if the plot is to get home, which is the plot of what we're writing, that needs to be there. So an alpha reader is looking for that. All right. I struggle to write linear. First off, you don't have to write linear. And by the way, the poll is to suggest like what drafting myths, meaning like things that people, you have to do this. It has to do that, right? The poll is about like what you hear that isn't necessarily helpful. It could almost destroy it. But with that said, if you are struggling with linear writing, really it's just events moving forward. However, if you're writing 3 or 4 chapters of something happening in order, they get to work, they fix the computer, they go to lunch with their friend, and then maybe the 4th chapter is actually we're going back in time, and the boss comes to work, and we're watching the boss go. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to mess with time. So that's something you're allowed to do. So don't feel like you can't do that. But if you're looking to write linear, you just put like for example, if the boss and the protagonist come to work at the same time, what you would do is chapter 1, the first half of the chapter would be the boss or the protagonist, most likely the protagonist. And then you do a hard chapter break, and now the boss shows up. And that's basically saying, hey, it's happening at the same time. There's a lot of play you could do in that. Working with Thomas one-on-one, he definitely hits all those DE purposes rather than just another version of an AR. I appreciate that, sir. Yeah, we're looking to go deeper as a developmental editor. We're trying to connect reason and purpose, whereas an alpha reader doesn't necessarily do that. They're just taking note if it exists or doesn't exist. Hey, this is missing. My job, and Ro knows, I'm always going to ask why. I'm not saying it shouldn't be there. I'm never saying don't do that. What I'm saying is why. Why is this happening? What does this lead to? And the reason a developmental editor does that is we're trying to give you, the authors, the tools to ask those questions yourselves. And by the way, thank you so much, Ro. I really do appreciate that. I tried and failed to write linear. That's why I always like an outline. An outline lets you see how the movement of the characters' plot runs out, and then you could sort of like mix and match that into chapters. That is something that everyone should definitely work on, but I can understand why it is difficult. My advice to you is practice, practice, practice. Not necessarily writing out the chapters, but writing out like a line or two that explains what the plot beat is for that chapter, and then you could sort of like mix and match it. I always shave. I always shave my dyslexia. I keep thinking it says shelf, and it takes me a second. Shave a definitive idea off how to start and end, then I work to the inside. That's a pretty common way. Yeah, absolutely. Where like where it starts, where it ends, but then you're going to kind of play in the sandbox leading up to those things. That's always good. That's always fun. There's nothing wrong with pantsing. My biggest problem with alpha readers is that I also want them to be beta readers. The problem is you should be giving alpha readers unpolished work. In the unpolished work, you might not have pure immersion. You might not have subtextual dialogue. You might not have connecting plot points. You may be missing things, and not by anyone's fault other than writing is hard. Like, you're going to have to rewrite. You're going to have to rework, right? So you need to allow yourself to approach alpha readers differently than beta readers. Alpha readers are not, by definition, your beta readers. Beta readers are simply people who love to read and love that genre, and you want to get their emotional experience to it. If an alpha reader is emotionally experiencing your book, that's a great side effect, but honestly, it's better that they get the foundational elements because you want the book to make sense. You want everything to connect. Great question, though. I was told earlier on that you have to write chapter 1 to chapter 30, or you aren't writing properly. But back in May 92, I learned the writing, the tree. Oh, the writing. Yeah, yeah, writing the tree method. The tree method. Yeah. Um, well, more importantly, uh, uh, you have to look at writing um, as a process of development for yourself as an author. And if some, like for example, I am showing everybody the 27 plot point outline. I am showing everybody my writing process, but in no way, shape, or form am I saying this is how you do it. However, um, oh, all right. We got some questions there. What's the tree method? The tree method is basically you get it's you know how like I'll write like a broad general idea, right? And then I sort of like expand on it, right? So it's like you get like a topic sentence, right? Because it's I think it's an acronym or something. It's like T is a topic sentence, and then R would be like the reason or something like that. You have to what is the reason? Something like that. What am I thinking? Um, I'm trying to remember it. I can't remember it totally. But in story, you got to think of like each part of the tree. Like the leaves would be the detail, and it would be the descriptions and the dialogue. It's the stuff that you put on at the end. But the branches are like the supporting points, or the subplots and character arcs. It's the things that branch out from the trunk, and the trunk is like it represents the main plot. It's the main idea. It's a thing that holds it all together. And then, of course, the roots are all the stuff that people may not know. It's the history. It's the, your motivations as the author. It's the, I believe, you almost stumped me. I believe, I feel confident on that, what I just said with that. So that's the idea, is like the roots are everything that the writer gets to carry that may not end up on the page. The trunk is the main plot. The branches are subplots, character arcs, world building, all that. And then the leaves are all the detail that you get into like the later drafts, if I remember correctly. And I feel that one. I feel I did good. I did that. I did good with that one. What else? I've heard all of those, but I chose pantsing equals talent because that's what I've heard the most. That is on the list. I've heard the most that's not on the list is you can't edit while you write. The reason they say you shouldn't edit when you write is because it slows you down. Like it slows down the process. And the whole goal is like finish the book and then go back and do your notes. I don't think you should edit as in like, let me do line editing and copy editing. Let me make sure all the prose are perfect. I don't see anything wrong with editing as in you finish chapter one and then you kind of go back to the beginning of chapter one, you read through it, and maybe you adjust things and add things and that's so forth. But if you go into edit, I think it's a waste of time, mostly because by the time you get to the end of the book, you're going to have to read it. You're going to have to take notes. You're going to have to take out scenes. You're going to have to add scenes. You're going to have to adjust scenes. You're going to, right? So there's so much extra work that destroys the editing, or I should say the polishing, that destroys the polishing. I think it's smart to edit while you write and edit by, going in and taking notes and be like, let me add this, let me take that out. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to edit to polish, that's where I would say it's a waste of time because you are literally going to change things. That's my only suggestion. Hey, interesting. All right. WTT is creating 10 scenes, leaves. Then, create the characters, limbs, world. Yeah, so that's basically what I was saying, right? Yeah, yeah. So the leaves are sort of like the extra stuff. The characters are the limbs. The roots are the world. Well, that's a little different than I was saying, but yeah, it's basically the same thing. Stump the jumps. It happens. All right. Sounds like it's similar to I love the snowflake method. That is you're on the concept, Thomas. Excellent. Yeah, it took me a second because I have so many methods in my head. I was like, let me get there. But yeah, it's the only difference is you look at each part of the tree as a very specific element of the storytelling, whereas the snowflake method is you're building on it. All right. Okay. Where are we? All right. That was really great. Thanks for the feedback for everything and all the thoughts. So when it comes to being the alpha reader, ultimately your job is to come in and you're just going to take note of what is there and then look at your notes at the end and say what's missing. And you're not going deeper into the connect. You don't have to worry about why. You don't have to ask the author, hey, what's going on here, because the author knows that. But if things are missing, if characters don't feel complete, if by the end of the book you're like, hey, there was this thread that I was reading about one character that I really, really liked, and then I just disappeared. Like, I want to know if Finn is a Jedi. Anyway, moving on. Moving on. Why is Finn not a Jedi? I don't understand. This is all I heard when that moment happened. This is all I heard. Let's keep it going. Things to keep in mind for alpha readers. So when you are working with alpha readers, okay, when you get to them, make sure that your zero draft is finished. And by finished, I mean it has everything that you feel it should have before you work it. An alpha reader could have solved a lot of problems there. Yes, an alpha, that's their goal. They're seeing stuff you're not seeing because you know everything. Not you, but the royal you. Like, the authors know the world. They've been sitting with these characters, the plot, the ideas. They've been working on the micro level of things as well because they're in chapters. Whereas readers, alpha readers specifically, they're getting to see it with fresh new eyes. So they totally dropped the ball on Finn, and I could literally do another 4 hours on it. All right. So the goal is to give them what you feel is a finished zero draft. Now, remember, in my process, one second, my wire's getting in my way. In my process, as you can see, after I write the zero drafts out, what I do is I go back and I organize plot points and elements from my notes. I take notes and then I adjust what I have. This is my opportunity to make sure the zero drafts are what I want them to be before I send them to the alpha readers. Now, to be clear, I think I said this last week, I would technically revise the zero drafts and start writing like prose-esque kind of writing and adding a little bit more dialogue and sort of trying to see it out before I send it to the alpha readers. But because I knew I was going to have alpha readers this time, I just sort of kind of streamlined it so you could see the process. And the reason I do that is because I've been doing this for so long that I kind of already see a lot of the stuff that I want to do, and I just put it into the piece. I'm just showing you the slower version, like the going detail per detail and going as immersed into each step as I could. But ultimately, I want alpha readers to sort of feel like they're reading like a choppy zero draft and not necessarily just my notes. However, in the past, I have given them just notes as well. But anyway, all right, let's keep it going. Beep. Okay, so who should you get to read? Oh, what are we going? Instead of alpha readers, they went with sensitivity readers. Oh, all right. Hey, look, if it works, it works. I don't really look. If you want to use sensitivity readers, I'm all for it. I don't use sensitivity readers. In my mind, if you read any of my books or will read any of my books, you will know what they feel like. You'll know the topics I feel. But there's a lot, pretty much everything in the books that I write about has a direct connection to something I've experienced, either directly or indirectly. So, if I could get through the book, and I do, when I'm writing, I get emotional, I can cry, whatever the case is, right? It's like when I was acting, when I'm reading and writing screenplays and stuff like that, you have to feel through these emotions to make sure it's working. And so if I'm going through that emotional movement, that's what I want, and if people read it and they're just like, hey, there's a lot of violence, this was too much for me, and they close the book, I'm not against a content warning though, like, hey, listen, it's called The Maven Wars. It is war. There's death, there's violence, there's a lot of bad stuff happens. you're not going into the Maven Wars and expecting a romance. I hope. Though there is romantic elements. All right. Who? You want to go for peers, not peers by the ocean, not peers by the river, but peers as in your fellow writers. People who understand your genre first and foremost, because you don't want a romance reader or someone who loves romance looking at, say, thrillers or horror or whatever, or grimdark. So you want people that are into the genres and won't be bothered by unpolished work. That's so important because remember, they're not reading something that is refined. So if you're finding people that are just like, this is not like, bro, this is not like, I want to feel the tavern. You're like, okay, you're reading I will bring you back. Yeah. We will get into questions that you should ask, but you do need to ask specific questions, things to look for. So with beta readers, they're broader experience questions. Tell me what are your initial thoughts on this chapter. Another beta question might be, what character stood out the most to you and would like to go hang out with, right? So, yeah, not the peers that you fish from. That's right. Right. So beta questions are always going to go back to, what did you like about the magic system or whatever, did you like the magic system? Whereas alpha readers is, does the magic system make sense, right? And I wrote this as the beta. This is a beta question to get my brain thinking. This is more of an alpha question. Does the magic system make sense? Okay. But again, we talked about it earlier. They'll be working through the plot and you go, what is the narrative about? That's an important question. In fact, when I am doing the alpha reader section, what I do is I have them read, so you know how I do the 27 plot point outline? What I do is every section of the 20 has 3 plot points, right? So there's 9 sections. Each of those sections have 3, and therefore you equals 27. So what I do is I have them read a full section, all the chapters in a section, whether it's one, well, it would be a minimum of 3, whether it's 3 chapters or it's 7 chapters. Then I ask them very specific questions. So if it's the ordinary world, which is section 1, I asked them, who are these characters? What is the narrative about? What do you feel? Maybe they don't know what the word promise means, but what do you feel the promise is? But what I would say is, what do you feel is going to pay off in the later book? And the reason I do these questions in each section is because I want to see if my book is doing the job, because there are certain things I'm creating on the page to misdirect my red herrings. And then there are things that I am seeding that I am hoping that they notice. And then there are things that are sort of like, if you are really reading, you will notice things that are for those readers that are just like, I want to know. Because the way I write my books is ultimately, when you finish the book, if you go back and read it, it's a different read. At the end of the day, when you finish the book, well, at the end of the time, you go back, it's going to be a different book for you. Once you finish the next book, if you go back, the first book will be a different read, as well as the second book. And the reason is because I have layers to everything that I do. So there are certain things I ask to basically kind of see if those things are paying off. My point is, by the time they get to section 2, I have different questions that I specifically need to ask. And it's relevant to your story, by the way. So, I can't be like, ask them about the berserkers. Because you might not have berserkers. Anyway, and by the way, alpha readers are about steering the draft, and it's not about creating a cycle of rewrites, okay? Your job as a writer isn't to give somebody your 0 drafts and then rewrite your book. Your job as a writer is to give people your 0 drafts, let them give your notes, and then refine what is there. Yes, you might have to add more scenes. Yes, you might have to delete some scenes, but you shouldn't have to throw out everything you wrote and rewrite it from scratch. I just noticed in my story there was a timing issue, not a huge one, minor adjustments on what happens and what time during the day. That's always a fun little thing you notice, like when you're writing, especially if time is important, where you're just like, wait a minute, it was daytime, now it's nighttime, wait, is it lunchtime? And you might, other people might be like, that's not important, but it is for like us writers, and it might influence the narrative in a sense too. And that's why I did not like the show 24, because they're in LA, and every episode takes place for 1 hour, and somehow they traveled somewhere that takes maybe 5 minutes to get to, but because of traffic, it takes 40 minutes. And somehow they got there, did a whole bunch of stuff, and then somehow got back. Time is important. All right. All right. Any questions on this before I go a little deeper? I'm going to show some. I'm going to show you some stuff. Yeah. Do 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 do. Oh, by the way, a couple other things. My head is just hitting this stuff. All right, listen. If you have an alpha reader come in, okay, and they start line editing, okay, if they start fixing your grammar, if they start trying to polish up your stuff, they are not alpha reading. A line editor is someone that comes in when you are done. When you say this book is done and you hand it in, the line editor comes in and cleans up your lines. If your alpha or beta readers are fixing your grammar or your spelling errors, it's good that they're noticing those things and great. But again, you're going to be making corrections and edits. You know what I'm saying? Like it's still, there's still things like even on the Death of a King, the scribe tier, it's 0 first and third draft. It's not my polished drafts. So that third draft will still have misspelled words. It'll still have, sometimes I'll spell a name differently. Maybe I'll confuse a name, right? Whatever the case is, because I'm not having my continuity readers. I'm not the continuity reader. I'm not having the copy editor go in yet. If your alpha or beta readers are doing that, it's fine. They found spelling words. That's really helpful. But at the end of the day, there is a whole other draft that happens at the end. And when I say draft, I don't mean you're rewriting. I mean you're going through and somebody is cleaning up those lines. So line editing and grammar and polishing stuff, that is far, far later. But that's also another reason, you have to have an alpha reader that knows this is not a polished draft. We are not reading a polished draft. What we got here? Fix what's broken. Keep what's sound. Absolutely, 100%. 100%. I could barely get people to beta read for me. Alpha reader is for privileged ones. Afghani, there are plenty of alpha readers out there. What you got to do is you got to build your community. You got to find people you trust and believe in. That's why you got to go out to libraries. You got to go out to wherever writers are, because the goal is to build friends and peers that ultimately develop this, I don't want to say tight-knit community, because you should have your arms open to expand it to other people. But at the end of the day, really, it's your job not to just randomly reach out to strangers or go to Fiverr and be like, please read for me. It's about how do I give back to other writers that are my friends and growing these relationships, and that'll help you. And even though your polished work is really good, I'm always one to compliment your writing. That alpha reader element of it really, that when you get into the larger stories, those instead of the short stories, you are going to need those alpha readers to make sure that everything is connecting. And I implore you to start building your relationships with people so you can start doing that. About 24. I only got through season 1 and 3 episodes in season. You know what's so funny? That's exactly how much I watched. The first season I was like, all right, the twists and all the stuff with the couple of the characters, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then season 2, I'm like, they don't know what to do with the daughter. They don't know what to do with some of the other characters. It's just, and I just, by the 3rd episode, I was like, there was another show that he did where it was, what was it called? Designated Survivor. And that first season was so good. It was just top-notch writing. And then by the 2nd season, I didn't even finish the 2nd season. I was just like, this is just garbage. And then they had a 3rd season, and I was like, no, I'm good. I'm giving up Starbucks to afford an editor. Smart. I hope he's really nice and has a good beard. Find a local writing community. There are also groups on Discord that are interested in assisting with this. Yeah, no, again, if you can find it online in Discord or, whatever the case is, what I'm saying is like, if you could build relationships with people and develop, even if it starts on Discord, but start people that you text and message, people that you talk to weekly or daily. Like, you want to have good relationships with people. Relationships lead to opportunities always. I didn't even make it through one season. There were too many. There are a lot of side plots in 24. It's like they were like, the show's called 24. Why don't we have 24 side plots? All right. Where was I? Let me look at I have a couple other notes on it. All right. Oh, as an alpha reader, one of the best ways to really approach the process, for the record, okay, is you want to tell people what is good, what is not working, and then what you'd like to see more of. So those are three. By the way, what is working, what is not working, what I want to see more of. So as an alpha reader, while you're taking notes, this should be the beginning thesis of your notes. And this I would give every so many chapters. If the author knows exactly what is first act, second act, and third act, I would answer this at the end of each act. Okay? What is working, what is not working, and what I want to see more of. For me, since I know exactly where chapters fall in sections, I ask this at the end of every section. And again, this also has to do with, my specific questions for each section as well. So that's important to know. So far, he's pretty excellent. Thanks, TJP. I hear it's very funny too. That's the basics of feedback on anything. Always start with what you like or what is working and end with what can be improved. Yeah, people don't do that online. Some are just like, you know what I hated? All right, but what did you like? I like that I was able to finish reading and I could go have a nice drink or something. Yeah, always what is working. But when you're answering what's working, it's basically, again, what is working with the plot. Like, oh, hey, I like that the plot is leading to this, or I like, even if you're wrong, by the way, because remember, it's your perspective. So if you're like, oh, I really like that the plot is leading to, the person is a werewolf, oh, I can't wait when he turns into a werewolf. And you as the author have to be like, did I intend for people to think that this character is a werewolf? Or this character is a werewolf, and are they seeing it too early? Or there are no werewolves in this story. So what is working would actually end up helping you, even if it was wrong. And don't get upset if they're seeing it wrong. Don't defend it, but take those notes. So it's very important. Very important. They do that in the design world too. Oh, where they're like, you know what I like about these blue curtains? They really pull the room together. Unfortunately, the couch is garbage. What's with the couch? Why is the couch wrong? All right. Okay. The other thing, let me give some more notes. Let me give some more notes before I go into the big stuff. I know we want to get to the question stuff, but we're doing good on time, right? What is it? Yeah, we're doing good on time. All right. Some other things you want to keep in mind is, by the way, if you are reading for someone, or if you have alpha readers reading for you, you want a timeline. Okay, timeline is so important. You want to know depth of feedback. Okay, and then of course the format in which you'll get the feedback. So one of the things I do is I have two forms of feedback. I have the PDF of the work, and basically my readers will go into the PDF that's on Google Docs, and you can leave notes on a PDF, and they all leave the notes, so they can see everybody's notes, and they just give it. Basically, it's their initial read notes. This is for alpha and beta. Okay. When it's alpha, they're usually like, oh, this is confusing, or I don't know what's going on yet, or hey, I really like this part, or I like the emotional thing of this, right? Then what I do is some of the alpha readers, they like doing a phone call, and then that's where we have like the detailed notes. Other alpha readers like to write their notes in a Google Doc and send me that. So you just understand what kind of feedback, the format they're going to give you, what they're comfortable doing, et cetera, et cetera. But also the depth. I always tell people, look, if you have to write more than 2 sentences or 3 sentences, just tell me it sucked or it was good. Right? But you can still be specific. But if you're going to give me 6 pages of notes just on I like the way the characters behave, like I don't need that much. Like, it's too much. It's too much for you. I'm not going to read all of that. So you have to be upfront with that. And the timeline. Usually, again, if a section has 3 chapters at minimum, I go, can we get to this by the end of the week? If it has 6 chapters, I give them 2 weeks. If it has 9 chapters, I give them 3 weeks. So give people time. Give people time. You gotta give people time. All right. Other than that, let's get to the questions. Oh, we got some stuff here. I was glad I could get back to drinking my martini. What I really love about these blue curtains is I can get back to my martini. I read a story that had all the werewolf trope, but no one was a werewolf. And I was like, what the? Exactly. By the way, if you mention anything that has to do with werewolves in your book, that's a promise. You're creating a promise. And if you don't deliver on it, then they can't trust anything you write. So it's funny that happened. When I asked the author when we would see their werewolf change, and they were like, what werewolves? It's so funny that I use that as an example because it's true. Like, if the reader's seeing stuff that's there, and then the author has to make the choice, like, should the ending be a werewolf? I will say this: my friend read a screenplay. He had to critique it, and anyway, he read it, and he goes, he's like, bro, this script was insane. Like, they were just doing crazy stuff, and they were like fighting each other randomly, and they were like in cages, and right. And I go, and he goes, you don't find out until the very end, the last page, that they're all chickens. He's like, I thought these were people, because there's no indicator that they're anything but people until the very end, when someone comes into the chicken cage and takes the protagonist chicken and then kills the protagonist chicken for food. He's like, but I'm like, what are these people doing? Why are they running around in mud? And I'm like, I don't know if that's genius. Because, like, how do you film that? Remember, it's a screenplay. So if it's a screenplay, you have to visually see what's going on. But the whole play doesn't talk about them being chickens until the very end, when someone comes in and grabs the protagonist and cuts their head off and then cooks them, and the family eats a chicken dinner. And I was like, I don't know if that's genius or so funny. It was so funny. Because all I hear him reading, and he's just laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing at? He's like, I'm reading. It's just crazy. It's just chaos. And then once you know they're chicken, you're like, it's not necessarily chaos. It's like what a chicken does, So basically, alpha readers ask who, what, where, when, and why, and how. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. They're like, who's in the scene? What are they doing? Where is this taking place? When is it taking place? Why? Why is this happening? And how does this all connect? Yeah, that's good. They were chickens. What if the MacGuffin is a mislead? That's fine. By the way, most MacGuffins should be a mislead. It's like we have to get a thing because the plot isn't really, like, for example, I was talking about the Last Crusade yesterday, right? Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The MacGuffin is the Holy Grail, but that's not what the novel. That's not what the plot is about. The narrative is about Indy's relationship with his father, and Indy discovering something greater than treasure, in a sense. So the MacGuffin, it's not only do they lose the MacGuffin, they drop, spoiler, they drop it into a canyon by accident, because they can't get it, but it has not. So that is technically a mislead. You think they're going to get it, and you think it's gonna, but they don't. I read one book where the main character was a girl, but it took 4 chapters to reveal that. The whole time I thought main character was a boy. Didn't finish. Yes, that happens, especially if the name is like Chris, and you're just reading, you're like Chris, or like Pam. Is Pam the you know if if you look up the word androgynous, your name is right there. Your face is right next to it, Pam. What are you, Pam? It's androgynous. What is it? Oh, Pat. Pat. It's androgynous, Pat. Um, oh, in that movie, yeah. So it is good. Not that it matters necessarily if we know if they're boys and girls, but it does help with the visualization of it, and we as readers place certain. For example, if we said a character is a worshiper of the green tree leaves, and another character is the worshiper of the red tree leaves, the bias, and I say bias not in a negative way, it's what we have, it's the information we have, our perspective. What we think of the green leaves is going to change the way we look at that character on the page. So it is good to sort of identify something, someone, what they are, what they do, whatever, all that stuff, just so you can fill in a lot of the blanks for the reader. And what that means is ultimately, if I tell you I'm Sicilian, your mind is going to automatically go, this is everything I know about Sicilians. And then as the story progresses, it's going to chip away at what isn't accurate in your mind connected to the character and what is accurate. And then it's going to teach you other things. So it is good to kind of know that stuff. But I would be a little frustrated too. Like if I'm just like, oh, I was misled, In Where Cow, first of all, I'm already in. Witch Cat and Wolf. The first 4 chapters sound like Daisy is a girl on a farming commune, a la The Village. Oh, I got comments about that movie. Then you find out she was always a cow until she was bitten by a minotaur shifter. A lot of information just hit me right. She didn't have. Oh my God, that's crazy. She didn't want to have a human. She liked being a cow. That's funny. That's a crazy story idea. Where Cow, Witch Cow, and Wolf. First, Where Cow, you had me at. That chicken story sounds good. Wouldn't mind reading it. It's a screenplay, but yeah, it was. It was for a screenplay competition too. He's one of the judges. I was like, for the love of God, please select that one. That is a wild story. The Where Cow, Witch Cow. All right, let's go into this. Okay, so when it comes to questions, all right, let's see, story and plot. Let's talk about story and plot. So some of the questions you should be asking yourself, these are general questions you could ask an alpha reader, but remember, you have to ask specific questions for your story as well. So these are good starter questions to sort of get them going. I would also suggest not giving them 28 questions. If they're going to read, like again, like I let them read a section of chapters, if they're going to read 3 to 5 or even 7 chapters, you could give a little bit more questions. You could, here's like 10 questions. If they're doing a chapter at a time, when I started doing that, I would ask a lot more questions, and I realized I'm a douchebag. So stick with a few questions, mix it up, but ultimately, some of the questions, does the opening, well, actually, what I would say is, does the first line, paragraph, and chapter pull you in, right? It's a good grade of what's going on with the book. But again, this would be a beta reader, right? So when you're coming up with questions, what you do is you write out the question, you figure out what it feels like. Does this feel like experience, or does this feel like structure? Oh, we're getting. What if the title says werewolf, but it doesn't end up being a werewolf? Instead, it's like someone making people believe. That's fine, because if they believe they are a werewolf, that's still connected to the idea of werewolf. What I found difficult was it didn't really give any hints about why she dressed as a boy, and I thought by fourth chapter it should have given. Well, that's understandable. Like if they're doing, like for example, if a character is in space being an astronaut, and then by page five, not page five, chapter five, you learn that they're not an astronaut, that they were shot out of a ship. Like that would be, be like, what's going on here? I thought in my head I was giving them, you know, the benefit of the doubt. All right. So when you're writing out questions, you should be asking yourself, where, werewolf? Where is the wolf? When you're writing out questions, you should be asking yourself after you write out the question, does this feel like experience? I do. Does this feel like experience or does this feel like structure? Okay. Because again, I could also be like, at any point, were you bored? Right? These are like pretty common and traditional questions that have nothing to do with structure. All right, so let's get to it. How do we take this and turn it into structure? Well, the thing is, what happens in chapter 1? Okay, that's a great question, because if they can't articulate what happened in chapter 1, or if they just tell you what they happen on the surface level, and they're not seeing the deeper thing that's going on, the plot, I should say, because there is a difference between, Jacob met Sally, and they ended up going in a cab together, and then you realize, okay, what else though? Like, is that all that? Because if that's all they saw in the chapter, what is that telling you as a writer? It means your zero draft isn't showing the deeper story yet. And again, that has nothing to do with immersion. That has nothing to do with the love story. It has nothing to do with all that, right? Even if it's Jacob, even if it was Jacob worked as a blacksmith, okay, and they are trying to make enough money to leave the village and move to the big city. This is a stronger note that is telling you that your chapter has explained the plot. Jacob worked as a blacksmith, and they are trying to make enough money to leave the village and move to the big city. That means that that information is there, that you did your job as an author. So if it is just if it's just Jacob works as a blacksmith and people like him, he gets along with others and has a big job making swords for the army. At you as the author, like let's say one alpha reader gave you this and one alpha reader gave you this. Your job as an author is to figure out, okay, those things, both those things happen, but one person of my three only saw the bigger plot, whereas somebody else just saw what was happening present. So you have to say to yourself, how do I go back? And I have to make those, when I'm writing out the actual first plot, I don't know why I'm doing this. When they write out the first plot, when you're working on the first draft, I have to make sure that both those things are clear. Because again, if you have three readers and each of them are only seeing, Jacob met Sally, the local captain of the army, okay? If one reader is only saying, oh, Jacob met Sally, the local captain of the army, they're not seeing the greater picture. That's all they got out of the first chapter. Something is missing. But if Jacob worked as a blacksmith and they are trying to make enough money to leave the village and move to, all right, now I know what the main plot is. One person, they should all at least have a little bit of everything. You know what I'm saying? The chapter should be clear enough. So instead of asking what pulled you in, be direct, be specific. What happened in chapter 1? Now, again, if you give them 3 or 4 chapters, okay, you're going to ask what um, some people don't know what plot is and stuff like that. So, what is the main thing happening over the course of chapters 1 to 5? Okay. It's all right to be that specific because you want them to hone in on what they remember and what. By the way, you could ask these questions after they read, or you could give them the questions so they are looking for it. Me personally, I give it to them at the same time. I go, here's the chapters. These are the questions, so they can have an idea of what to think about while working it. Okay, and this goes for characters too. You know, if you have characters, how do you spell characters? Characters. All right. If you have characters, okay, there's a difference between, let's see. Oh, did you like the character? This would be like a beta question because it is experience. But if you're going to ask a more alpha reader question, it's more or less, what does Jacob want? Okay, it's very specific. It's directed towards something you need to make sure that, right? Because with a beta reader, it's just about how they're enjoying it, right? You don't need specific things answered. With alpha readers, you need to know that Jacob's wants, and you can't say motivation. You can't be like, what's their motivations and positions? Like, not everyone knows what that means, right? So if you're just going to get people to read your stuff, they're not all going to know terminology. They're not going to know what, very few people know what pace actually means. When you say pace, they think, oh, it's fast or slow. But really, again, pace is just the speed at which information is presented to the reader and not necessarily the speed at which you read. That's a whole other thing. So when you're thinking of your questions, and again, I'm giving you general examples because your questions need to be specific to your narrative, okay? You have to look at the question and determine, does it feel more about experience or am I going deeper into the foundational elements? And keep them general. You don't want people, not everybody knows what motivations are. Not everybody knows what a position is, okay? Not everybody knows terminology. So what does Jacob want? Well, if we base it off of this, right? Some people, by the way, some people might write this for what happens in chapter 1. They might say Jacob met Sally. But then when they go to what does Jacob want, they might write this. They might write Jacob is trying to make enough money to leave the village and move to a big city. So what does this tell you as an author? You know what? They looked at it more analytically. They were like, oh, this is what is happening. So I just told you exactly what's happening. But this follow-up question allowed you to see that, oh, okay, good. The plot, the motivations are there, right? So that's why we have to diversify the questioning, because some people will take it literally. They will be like, okay, let's see. What else do we have? And again, like, you don't want to, like, here's an example of a question that no one would understand. What are the stakes? Okay, unless you're an author, and even then, sometimes authors don't necessarily know what stakes are. And then you might say, what are stakes? Stakes, very simply, what's to be lost, right? What is the cost and what is the price? That's all stakes are. If I do this or if this happens, what will I lose? Will I lose time? Will I lose self? Will I lose somebody I care about? Will I lose my money? Will I crash my car? Will I get the job? Will I not get the job? The stakes are, if A happens, what is the consequence? And by the way, sometimes the stakes are low. If I pick up my baby and swaddle the baby, it will go to sleep. Stakes are low. If I have one arm and the dog is jumping around and I have to pick up the baby to swaddle it, the stakes are high. Because if the dog, because I'm only holding with one arm, the dog is jumping around and could pull me and I could drop the baby. If I drop the baby could. So in that situation, the stakes are high. So anyway, most people don't know what stakes are. Unless, what is this? Unless the baby has. That's true, because then they're just not going to go to sleep. That's why you have to use a little rum. I mean, what rum? Um, Also, the baby could be a were chicken. We don't know. All right, the steaks are what you cook for. That is accurate. That is accurate. It's a meaty joke. It's a meaty joke. Unless you're a vampire. Yeah, if you're a vampire, then you wouldn't have a baby, right? Well, some my vampires can have my Delaris, which are like basically vampires that uh, are actually stronger in the sun than in the moon. They can have babies, but my traditional vampires, the ones that are the sun can hurt you, they can't have children. My dad used to put whiskey on my gums when I was a baby. Now I like whiskey. I guess one would say that he whiskeyed you to sleep. Yeah, I heard that was a thing. Like my parents said their parents did it, and I was like, "Did you ever do it to me?" And they're like, "No, we didn't do it to you." But mostly because we had a dry house by the time I was born. By the time I was born, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um. Oh, real quick. Uh. By the way, what are the stakes? Like, you don't have to ask those questions to people. I don't think it would help with the more or less not great, more or less alpha reading elements of it. Okay, but you could say if you want to know, um, did the characters feel like they were in danger or not at any time? Okay. Okay. That would be an example of stakes. Now, again, it's specific to your narrative. So another example would be uh, did you feel they would lose their job if they didn't take the promotion? Okay. Promotion. Right. So if the character in the chapter is like, hey, I want to give you a promotion, and they're like, well, I want to think about it, do you want the reader to feel like the character could lose their job if they don't take it? Or do you want to feel like the character feels like that, right? So if there's a certain feeling you're looking for, a certain response to that, that would be a specific question you would ask. And that would be, what are the stakes? Do you feel they would lose their job if they didn't take the promotion? So that's the way you have to like reframe it for alpha readers. Um, the other thing is, so let's go back. Let's go down a little bit more. Let's go down. All right. So if we're gonna look at world building notes, and again, mix up your questions. I wouldn't go more than 5 or 10. And again, base it really on how many chapters you give them and what you're really looking for. Um, but if we go into world building, you want to ask about very specific things to your story. What do we got? Oh, I'm missing stuff. Knock, knock, knock. Oh, yeah, it was a thing, right? It was a very common thing. Poor Thomas, he constantly has to translate all writing terms for me like it's a kid. Nah, I don't mind though. I love teaching and I love informing, but as writers, you want to get the most out of your alpha readers. So, the majority of people don't understand the terminology, and that's okay. But they do understand things. Not the first time I've heard of that. It was a thing back then. My sister used to wake up in the middle of the night, so the doctor said, "Put some whiskey in her milk." Yeah, because it just puts them to sleep. Yes, she is still alive. All right, good. Good, good, good. All right. So if it comes down to world building, a beta question might be like, did the town feel real? Or did the workplace feel busy? Right. That would be a beta reader experience question. But again, with beta readers, I don't think you should go as specific as you do with alpha readers. But this is the feel of it. Did it feel, right? But if you want to go a little bit more alpha reader, you got to rethink things and basically be like, did the environment uh, feel lost in the scene. Now, now in a zero draft, environment should still feel present. So again, if we look at this chapter, right? Uh, well, that's more prose, but the device really gave me issues. So the device, she's talking about her ship. She pulls the lever. So the ship is involved in the movement of the scene. She turned on the guiding jets. It's part of the ship, right? Laura speaks to the ship, right? Laura repeats herself and the ship responds. So in this situation, if I ask, does the environment feel present or does it get lost in the scene? The answer would be yes, it feels present because the environment is the ship. All right. So that would be an example because if you're not using the environment, then why are they there? That's always an important thing to think about when you're writing. If they're in a living room, why? If they're in a bedroom, why? If they're in a kitchen, why? If they're driving, why? And if the answer is just, well, I want to change it up, well, you're not changing it up. Because if the scene is a white room, if it doesn't exist, it's just the first paragraph is they're in a car, then you're not necessarily changing it up. You're just going, why? To me, it's a different environment. No, how's the car ride influencing their behavior? You know, what is it about the POV that is recognizing the car? Like, kids nowadays don't know, but all cars had ashtrays, right? So it either had coins in it or it had ashes in it, right? Some guy, we had this kind of, we didn't have this kind of window, you had to roll down the window like this. So if a character is getting hot in there or somebody starts smoking in a car because it's that time period, right? Do they roll down the window? What does it sound like? It was a pain in the ass sometimes, right? I got to use my whole arm. Okay, the smoke. Okay, the car, maybe they're not smoking, but they do smoke, so the car smells like smoke. The point is, if they're in an environment, let the environment be part of, and that's why that's an important question, okay? Another one that you really should do is if magic or science or technology is a part of it, ask them directly, did any magic on the page get confusing? And by magic, it could be technology, it could be, tech, all right? Because remember, in sci-fi, technology is technically magic. So when they teleport in Star Trek, that's magic. All right. So those are important things to definitely. Now, when it comes to the final thought or the final question, this is something that's very important. All right. So these are like final take questions. Okay. I'll bring these down too, just so you have them again. You should be paying attention to these things. To be fair, I like these. Whoops. I like these to be answered before any of the questions. So I usually put these at top. What was, because I want their first thoughts. But the other things is what is like the biggest question you were left with from the chapter. Now, this is foundational because ultimately, if the plot's not plotting or the characters aren't charactering or the world building is confusing, they might say, I don't know what was happening, or why does Jacob want to move to the city? Because again, this says Jacob worked as a blacksmith and they are trying to make enough money to leave the village and move to the big city. So if they read 3 or 4 chapters and they say, I don't know why he wants to move to the city. I just know that he is working to save money to get to the city. That's important because if 4 or 5 chapters in, I promise you, the audience needs to know by then. And the reason is because that's your ordinary world. And if you're writing an epic fantasy, let's be honest, by your 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th chapter, you should be in the inciting incident, which means the reader must know what their motivations are, which is what that is, right? So if they're like, I don't know why he wants to move to the city, that has to be answered because that's foundational. Oh, okay. Can you ask the alpha reader, how do you see the plot unfolding, or what are your expectations of? Yes, you can. However, again, I would reframe the sentence away from because again, what is plot, right? Some people don't know what plot is, and of course, there's different variations. Me, for example, a narrative is made up of both plot and story. Plot is what needs to happen no matter what, and story is how the plot unfolds through the emotional experiences and choices of characters. So, to keep it more straightforward, where do you see the story going? And that's because most people look at a narrative as a story. Instead, if you don't want to use narrative, you go, where do you see everything going? Right? Keep it very simple. Plot is not always the most for I'm talking about general readers that are coming on that you trust. Obviously writers would be like, I know what plot is, you know. But what I'm saying is, you know, where do you see the story going? You know, or more importantly, where do you see Jacob going, ending up? Or what do you think will happen to Jacob? Okay. One of my favorite questions to ask actually is, who do you think is going to die? So because it's epic fantasy, every section, the more and more people get to know about a character, I'll be like, who do you think's gonna die? And they're like, someone's gonna who are you gonna kill? I go, I'm not saying anyone does die. I'm just asking, who do you think is gonna die? Like, who do you feel will die? And it's always there was a couple names they said, and you'd be surprised. So it's very funny. It's very funny when you're working with people and you say that. But the reason I want to do that is the reason I asked that question, by the way, is because I want stakes, but I don't want to ask if does it feel like there's stakes. But if you say, who do you think is going to die? That means you're building that character up. You're building tension up. And that's important. So if they're in a zero draft feeling the tension for this character, right? And they believe that character is going to die, in their mind, they're reading, waiting for that character to die. And if by the end of the book they don't die, you release the tension and they're like, oh, they made it through. They made it through the 80 chapters or whatever it is, right? So that's a good thing to know for me because I want the world to feel dangerous. I want, now obviously, the first act in Death of the King doesn't feel super dangerous. And I do that on purpose. There's a reason for that. Because I assure you, it is very dangerous after once we get into Act 2. But uh, I still want people to think, okay, I think the tropes are being formed. I think this is happening. I think that. So it is important to ask those questions. But that's a really good question, Cindy. And it is, you do want to know those kind of things because the answers will tell you if you're adding enough or not enough information to make sure that people are seeing that. I will say, though, I purposefully am trying to subvert certain expectations. So, Act One is setting up what I'm not going to give away anything, but what I would expect people to think is going to happen. And then you realize, oh, it is not that story. It is something else. Soft system versus hard system always needs to be clarified. Does the alpha reader see the same system as the writer? It's not that they have to see the same system, but you should be, if that is important to you, if it is a hard system in your mind as a writer, if you're like, I am writing a hard magic system, you need to ask, what is the magic system? Or let's say fireballs are like the big thing. You ask them, how does somebody cast fireball? If they could explain it, then your hard system makes sense. Even if on the page the characters don't go, to cast a fireball, you must write the enchantment on a piece of paper, light a match, and then burn it, and then even if you don't have that said, if you are physically showing it or working through like characters learning it and the reader can explain it, then great. If it is a soft system and you don't want people to feel complicated by the magic, you could just simply ask, does the magic make sense or is it too confusing and crazy? That is basically, are they reading and going, I don't know what they're shooting lightning out of their nose holes. So that is something you could ask. Do you ask them to read the whole thing first and then go, no, never. No. I'll tell you why. Very important reason. I give them, like I said earlier, sections. So if we look at, let me let me open up the file for you. Let me open up the file for you. Yeah. All right. Ooh, 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 all right. Okay. So this is the 27 plot point outline. So what I would do is see section 1, the ordinary world. I would give them all the chapters that fulfill these 3 plot points. And the reason I do that and then ask some questions is because depending on what they say, I know if things are coming through or not in groups. And that allows me enough time to start working on adding what I need to add to these chapters as it is. Now, if by the end of Act 1, which are these 3 plot points, if what I want it to be is not coming through, I know that I have to start doing that kind of work. I have to start cleaning that up. Right? So I like to get it in sections because the reader is going to have freshly read a select group of chapters. You know, like I think the longest plot point I have is plot point 1. It has 9 chapters, and then everything else is way under that. It's like 5 chapters or less. Some plot points only have, like the plot point 3 in Death of a King only has 1 chapter. So, you know, it does move around. But the reason is I want what they read to be fresh in their mind. So I like to do it in the beats because did I set up the world? You know, what about the disruption did they deal with? The life changes. Does it feel like their life is different? And like, I don't know what chapters people are reading now, so I won't give anything away. But there's a certain chapter in Death of a King where it feels different. It feels very different than the first 10 chapters or the first 15 chapters. It just feels different. It feels something, you know? I don't want to give it away. So I need to know that that's happening in piecemeal. So if they read, let's say 60 chapters, and then I'm like, hey, in in chapter 7, it would be just too far. What is this? Oh, I do have a question. Is it okay if I do 3 chapters on my world where I introduce my characters in them? Yeah, it's okay to do 3 chapters to introduce them. Again, it depends. You know, if your book is only 5 chapters long, no, you know. But if your book is, what is it, 10%? You want to. If your book is, I doubt it's 100. Well, it might be 100,000 words. If it's 100,000 words, you want all of your characters to sort of be introduced by what is it 12%? So times 12%. That's what is that? 12,000 words. So by 12,000 words on average, it could be anywhere between 10 and 15. But if you're looking at 100,000 words, you can expand it. If you're doing a 150,000 word book, you'd probably go to 15%. If you're doing an 81,000 word book, which is an average book that it should be, okay, you do want to do 10%, and that would be 8,100 words. So if your first 3 chapters are 8,100, oh, you can't see that. If your first 3 chapters are 8,100 words, by your 4th chapter, you could get into the inciting incident. But if, you know, if your book is smaller, it really depends. It depends on the book. Everyone dies. No one gets their plot armor. I will say this much. I have no problem killing my characters. Dead. Very much so. There is one character in the story. His name is Otis. And so far, all the alpha and beta readers I had read it, they're just like, They love Otis. I'm not gonna say what happens to Otis in book one, but I just want you to know there was a lot of crying. Like their brains were like by chapter like 10, they're just like, don't kill this character, please. He's so adorable. He's like a cinnamon bun, just and that's all. Everybody's notes was, please don't kill this character. But every time he was on the page, please don't kill. I'm not saying he lives or dies. I'm not saying he lives or dies, but it was just funny because people really liked him because he's just he's a sweetheart. I write every character's death while I am building them, even if I never kill them. It makes the character behave. Sometimes hey, you just show them the page. You're not listening to me. Here's more stuff to do. You're gonna have to do it. I meant the parts that you give them, not the whole novel. Yeah. I'll give them the full chapter, the zero drafts. Yeah. If that's what you're saying, I meant the parts that you give them. Yeah. I'll give them. If section 1 is 12 chapters long, I give them all 12 chapters. Poor characters. What if you really mad at them? Do they die a worse death? Yes, they do. They must. A good question might be, can you see yourself in this situation? Meaning, is it visually appealing despite no prose? That's not necessarily foundational. That is experiment. That's the experience. Again, because you're trying to say, can you see yourself in this situation? That becomes an experience. Again, if it feels like an experience question that the reader must experience it, then it is not foundational. Foundational always reverts back to, is there clarity in the idea of motivations for the characters? Is the plotting, and does the world make sense? Not, do they see the world, or et cetera, et cetera. However, you can ask any questions you want. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, if you want to ask questions that are more experience based to your alpha readers, that is not necessarily a negative thing. Maybe your zero drafts are more refined at this point. Maybe, you're writing heavier prose instead of being more notes. If that's the case, feel free to do that. There's nothing in the world that says don't. I have 52 chapters in my story due to the 10 Isles. Yes, I want to see how far I could take my story. 52 chapters? Damn. Let's see. 52 times 3,000 words. That's 150,000 words. I'm assuming. 23,400 words. Not bad, not bad. That's where your inciting incident should go. Give or take. Absolutely. Gotta kill them all. Helps you not become so attached that you won't kill the character off if it benefits the story. Oh yeah. There are characters I don't want to kill that do die. And then there are characters that I want to kill that don't die. And then there's the characters that in revisions or just pacing issues that come up where I know that I can't kill them either yet or there. You know what I'm saying? And there's been several characters already where they didn't die, and then they did die, and then other ones where they did die, and then I was like, I can't. No, I got to change that. Only because, in my opinion, depending on the level of character it is, like if it's, Joe Schmo from, down the block who's like a, soldier, there are no names, they're red shirts. I don't really, don't put any thought into it. But if it's a character that the reader has built an emotional connection to, but also that the other characters have an emotional connection to, the death should have impact. However, because the same thing in real life, things just happen. Sometimes things just happen. And when you're writing, you can feel that, and the more you write, the more you practice, the more you study writing, you'll start seeing that, sometimes it's not about a big buildup, because like when you're watching a movie or something, you're like, uh-oh, something bad is about to happen, and then it happens. It's because you're perceiving all the signals, all the writing signals that dictate that this character is about to, right? So in writing, sometimes if you can sense that as a writer and as you're writing, you could use that. You could be like, oh, and you build the tension and then you resolve it by them not dying. So you subvert that fear of, I don't want this character to die. Like, I like this character. But there are other times when you know that if you wrote it a certain way, they would sense this character to die. And you're like, I want it to be more like out of nowhere. I want them to feel shocked. So, that's when an arrow comes out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. Um, but yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to kill characters. I think it's but it does yeah. My friend's writing a story and he's on a future book and he's like, I can't believe I killed this character off because it would be so good right now to have that character here. And what's funny is George Lucas dealt with that. Not to get into Star Wars, but he killed off Obi-Wan Kenobi, spoiler alert. And when he realized he could make a second movie, he's like, I need Obi-Wan to teach Luke. And he's like, all right, I guess I have to create another character. But that led to Yoda. Yoda didn't exist until he needed a new Ben Kenobi. And Yoda became this great expanded depth of a character in the mythos. And that would have never happened if Ben Kenobi survived. So sometimes that's why I tell readers, clients, everybody, writers, if your character dies, they die. Because now you have to come up with a solution. You have to think. You have to find something to fill that void, something to do with that experience. So I think it helps with writing. Because if you can rely, that's the other thing. If you can rely on a character, like for example, if a character, let's use fantasy. If a character is a wizard and ultimately they become so powerful by book 3 that like nothing really affect, oh look, orcs dead, that's why like Gandalf could never really use Gandalf powers in the Lord of the Rings because the story would be over, they'd be like, let's call the owls, we're flying over there. Well, they would be seen. Because you don't want to just solve the problem with the most powerful being. So sometimes you kill them off. You gotta, and then you have to find solutions. Never happened, it would. As Yoda would say, never happened, it would.
This one is not ready. I cannot chain this one. Do or do not. There is no try.
But it's so big.
And this is where you fail.
Well, the kitty cat's here. All right, let's talk about the. Any questions? Because that's pretty much everything I was going to talk about. My final thought is hone the questions to whatever it is that you're writing. If you're going to do chapter by chapter, ask specific questions for that chapter. Go ahead, baby. Go ahead. 2 has to leave. All right. If you're giving a chapter per chapter, ask specific questions about that chapter. If you're giving chapters, ask specific questions about the chapter's narrative arc. So what are you saying in those 3 chapters or 5 chapters? Basically what needs to happen, right? Also known as a narrative movement. All right. When it comes to characters, if there are certain things that are happening in the chapters that you give that you want to make sure are there, ask. For example, if you have characters that are using magic and you don't want them to come off feeling super strong or capable in the first 3 chapters, you ask, does this character feel overly capable and too strong at this point? Just ask the question because you want them to pay attention to that, Okay. How do you even come up with that speech pattern? I don't know. I think they wrote it that way. I don't think it was I don't think Frank Oz read like you have to try, you have to do, if you don't try, you're going to fail. And Frank Oz was like, you got to do or do not. There is no try. I don't think, it probably took a long time. Lucas was probably, doing a lot of drugs. Wouldn't have the series with Baby Yoda if Yoda didn't become a character. Oh, that's true. Yeah. Grogu would not exist without Yoda. I am Groot is an entire language based on Yeah, because he's like, I'm Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. I love you guys. Um, so yeah. So when you're writing out your questions, keep them specific to what it is you want them to pay attention to. All right. The other thing is if you're going to go more generic, which is also fine, make sure that they are foundational. Write out the question and then ask yourself, okay, did the town feel real is an experience question. Did the environment feel lost in the scene is a foundational question. Okay? Did any of the magic or tech on the page get confusing? That is a foundational question to the world building. Okay? Did the place feel busy? That is immersion. So that's experience. That would be beta readers. All right. And again, if we go back up to, did you like the character? You can ask that, but that is more experience and not necessarily what does Jacob want. You want to go deeper into it. Did you feel they would lose their job if they didn't take the promotion, right? So that creates the stakes we were talking about. All right. What happens? This is a very direct question you could ask. What happens in chapter 1? What happens in the first 3 chapters? What happens? You could ask that because if they can tell you what happened, sometimes it'll be as simple as this. Jacob met Sally, a local captain. Sometimes it'll be internal, and sometimes it'll just be a little different, It's going to happen. But more importantly, when it gets to the very end, remember to ask them these 3 questions no matter what. What is working, what is not working, and what I want to see more of. Of course, what do you want to see more of? Okay? And then, of course, you could have other questions. All right, there we go. What do we got here? Woo! Ordor. It's Odor. 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 Language. Sorry, yeah, I may have said I am Groot. Language. Whoa, language. I am Groot. Live or live not. This is why you fail. That's funny. Real question from reader. You are the murderer queen. Why didn't you kill? You got to kill the queen. All right, let's get to the and again, if you have any questions about what we talked about, just feel free to ask them. I'm going to go to the poll currently. The poll is, what is the drafting myth that backfired most for you or you feel would? And the reason I'm asking feel would is if you haven't written a draft or you haven't really had a long enough writer's journey where you don't feel anything has backfired yet. So what do you think would backfire? And right now we have 4 questions. 12 votes, too. We have speed matters more than depth. What that ultimately means is, just make things happen. Just get through the story. Don't sit in moments. This has to do with a concern. Which, by the way, Afghani, I do have a video coming out about that. So where the fear of readers getting too bored. So the pacing. It's not the pacing becomes quicker, right? So that's what that one is basically doing. Outlining will kill creativity. I love that 50% chose that. And we have a 3-way tie though with the first, third. We got pantsing equals talent, quote unquote, and then we have draft. Events must be linear. I love it. I love the choice. Outlining will kill creativity. I'm the first to say pants if you're gonna pants, but at the same time, when I hear people say that outlining kills creativity, outlining is creativity. It's blank. You don't have any ideas. So you have to technically develop or discover your narrative through outlining. And you can do that as a pantser, or you can do that as a pantser who is outlining. And what does that mean? It means you're pantsing off this cuff of your pants, trying to figure out what happens. Everything I did in this series so far has technically been discovery. I didn't know what I was going to write. It all started with, I think we're going to do sci-fi. All right, what's the character's name? You know what? Let's put her here. That's all it was. So I love that 50%. There is no wrong answers, though. Any of these are correct. But I do believe you do need depth. And the reason is you need to control the wave. So sometimes you want it to go, or actually, right? You want people to understand what's going on. You want it to be a slow ride. You want to explain things to people. You want people to get on board and then go, you can go down and get real fast, and then, right? And that's how a strong narrative keeps engagement. It's, whoa, oh, okay, all right, that was a lot. I saw what happened. There was this happened. It was emotional. Okay, let me get it. Okay, oh, we're gonna go again, right? So that's important. I already talked about outlining. Pantsing equals talent. I've always hated this myth where they're just like, if you're a pantser, you're a much better writer. And it's like, look, the main difference between pantsing and outlining is when you engineer it. If you outline, you're doing the engineering in the beginning. When you are pantsing, you're doing the engineering at the end, because what do you have to do? You got to reverse engineer it. You got to go through it. You got to read the chapters. You got to take notes. You got to organize it. And then you go back and you do the work. So do you want to do the work in the back end or the front end? That's all. There's no, doesn't matter if you pants or outline. And then drafts must be linear. I don't think they should be. I like being linear. I like going in order. But to be fair, Death of a King does start off in the future. It has a flash forward with the prologue. And then it goes way back to the past. And then we sort of go to what we would consider the present. However, Quentin Tarantino writes all over the place. So, do whatever you got to do. All right, what we got here? What we got? Oh, we got a lot. All right. Thank you very much for this. A great class for the first episode of the second year in this episode. Thank you very much, Ro. I really appreciate that. Sexy. Nice. Yeah. I think you're going to enjoy that video. I enjoyed working on that video. So I'll make sure it gets out there. Scary to believe it has been a year. Yeah, but we've gotten so far. We've gotten, oh, wait. I could do it on the screen. Ready? We finished Alpha Reader today. All right. Which means next week, I'm going to revise the Zero Draft based on all the notes I got. Thanks, notes. I might actually just skip this part because we don't need to do it. I'll think about that. When we get to Sunday, I'll think about that. Do I revise the Zero Drafts, kind of go through and start playing with them, or do I jump right to the first draft? But to be honest, I don't have any notes, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. We are flying through it, though. I know a lot of people who have been convinced that they must stick to an outline. Outlines are fluid. Outlines are very fluid. Yeah, I agree. In fact, in this book, I constantly am telling people to break things and switch things up and to listen, because our job as writers is to serve the narrative. We must serve the narrative. So if your short form outline says one thing, and then as you get to the extended outline, you're allowed to change things as much as you're allowed to change things once you get to the Zero Drafts, as much as you're allowed to change it, right? You're always allowed to change it. And when people feel you must stick to an outline, I think that's where you stifle. You kill the creativity because you're saying, I can't try, which that's scary. I'm getting used to outlining because up to now, I didn't feel it was fluid. Once set, it was set. Yeah, I was like that a long time ago. I think what helps me is the broad general ideas. To go from a single line of what needs to happen with the plot to how does that unfold to, you know what I'm saying? And then once I get into the prose, that's where I get to see it build and develop. You know what I'm saying? It's always a process. Outlining is just a pantser with long johns on. I love it. I do love it. That was funny. All right, so let's see. Where's my next week's stuff? Next week. Except for the flat earthers. All right, so next week, for anyone out there who wants to know, let's see. Today's Sunday, right? Wow, I can't believe it's Sunday already. All right. Next week we have, I'm going to do a video. By the way, Wednesdays and Friday, if it's not the weekends, it's pre-recorded. So just keep that in mind. But This Wednesday, we will have a Finding Your Character's Character. We're going to be talking about relationships and conflict. Relationships and conflict. All right. Let's see. Friday. Ooh, Friday is a video on editing. So basically, it'll be a video about working with an editor and how to get the most out of working with an editor. And then Saturday, our live video for Saturday, I will be doing a Rewrite the Greats. We're going to take The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and we're going to be rewriting in my author voice the first page. So that should be fun. And then, of course, we'll be back to, what are we doing? We're going to be doing, wow, can't believe we're already on 53rd. Jesus. We're going to be doing Rewrite the Greats. Not Rewrite the Greats. Write a book with me. Serious. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about that. 2 here today. I need those long johns. Wow, the -2 degrees. Whew, that's cold. That's cold. I arranged my birthday with, hey, happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Well, that's not today, right? Is it today? Let me look at my calendar. I feel like I wrote it down on my calendar. Let me see. Let's see. I don't have it here. Where is it? Huh. It's hidden. It's hiding. All right. What do we got here? I have vacation this week, so I'm going to work on my story. Yeah, do it up. Work on the story. 9 degrees? I'm cold just thinking about that. Be blessed and have a lovely week. I'll see you later. Have so much fun. Thank you for joining us. Woo, woo. I start editing chapter 9 tomorrow. Fantastic. New gym to go to as my old one. Hyped the monthly fee by 10. By 10? Meaning it went up 10? Wow. That's not... Man, the hell with them. This was great. I'm really glad. Thank you. Happy birthday. Thank you. I wish I had like a happy birthday song. It's 76 degrees in Colorado. Ooh, Colorado. That's my favorite state. Well, visually. Let's do it before we go. Let's go. Oh, when we were tone outlining at school, it seemed that fluidity wasn't accepted, so I never outlined anything, even my research papers. Yeah, well, now we realize we can make our own choices, and to hell with those people that are like, you must do it this way. You missed a lot, Emma. We talked a lot. I did a little dance, made a little noise. I flexed a little bit. You missed all the fun stuff. My birthday is next Monday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. All right. So if you don't know, I have 3 books available. Woo! Well, 2 technically, but the 3rd one is coming. So if you didn't know, Breaking Down Success right now currently is available on the Amazon, but you can go through makearightlefthehere.com. I am currently flying through this. I just did another 4 chapters last night. I'm going to do, hey, look, look at that. It's almost perfectly matched. All right. I'm going to be doing another 4 chapters tonight. I'm flying through. So I'm really excited about this book. And then, of course, Death of the King. I've been talking about it the whole episode. This is available on the Scribe tier. Go through makearightlefthehere.com, and you can go check it out. There's a lot going on. There's a few fellow readers in this group as we speak. And look, the whole book will be up there. It's just being released a chapter a week. Right now, I think it's chapter 17 ended last week. So we're on chapter 18 this week. But more importantly, it's educational as well. And there is a class attached to it. I will be releasing those videos as I finish up. So the Scribe tier, feel free to give a little look-see on that. What do we got here? Oh, I missed a whole bunch of stuff. Happy birthday, Hannah. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday for next Monday. Happy early birthday, Hannah. You were eating the pizza, weren't you, Emma? Yes, she was. Yeah, you missed the flexing. You mixed it. You missed it. Buy Thomas's outlining book when it's released. Yes, please. Please, Ro. Please get everyone to buy it. This is just a ploy to get me to rewatch the whole live. Yes, yes. I had to put my shirt back on. It was getting so cold. I was like, I can't keep flexing the pecs. My Amazon voucher is pouting for a release date. I promise you. It will be out soon. All I'm doing, by the way, is I'm reading through and just making slight adjustments to some of the formatting. Like obviously I redid the cover a little bit. I just shrink it down in the back. But I'm just doing some formatting elements and getting last minute little fixes, little ticks. So it's going. I'm having a lot of fun. It will be out. Which I obviously will do now. Is the 27 plot point going to be? It is not going to be available on Kindle at first. I am going to release the hardcover version first, and then I'm going to potentially release the soft cover sometime during the year and the ebook later. Only because the hardcover usually is released first. So I'm going to do that first and then sort of play it out that way. 17. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we are on chapter 17 on Death of a King. I truly hope you're enjoying the book, my friend, because I know you're reading it. I know you're perusing the peruser eye, and yeah, what chapter is that? That's I think Erol Jamu. You're on Erol Jamu. Wow. Yes. Oh, you just finished. Yeah, that's right. Because 16 was Prelude to Secrets. I love that chapter, by the way. I love every Aaliyah chapter. Thomas, on you, book 27. Will you have the ability to click on a specific plot point in the table of context? Not in the physical copy. Not on the physical copy. In the ebook, if I get to that, it should allow you to, because anything that's in the menu, any option that's in the menu should pop up, and because it takes the call it. See how I have the so see how the plot points are set up. So the plot points sort of get they're selectable. I was indeed eating pizza flowers. You were eating pizza flowers? Like a floral decoration? I'll be 40 years old next Monday. Oh, you're so young, Hannah. I miss those days. I miss when my back kind of hurt in my 40s. Now I'm like, my back is like almost like, oh, I'll make it up, Emma. I'll make it up. I'll send you a basket of something. What do you want? What do you want? Fruits? What do you want? You want flowers? What do you want? I'll hook you up. Hannah, happy upcoming B-Day. Thomas, let your hair down now. Uh-oh. If I let it down, I have to put it back up, though. I can't leave it down. Oh, God. Oh. Look at all that strain. Let's see. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Oh. I didn't really brush my hair today. I didn't brush my hair today. So long. It looks so gray though, like in the sun. You can kind of see it in the light. I like that it's like brown and then gray. Like it has a little switcheroo, you know. Oh, it's so hot when it's down. Hot as in like I'm sweaty. Okay, let's get this up. Oh. Okay. Oops, happy dance, Diana. I'm in there, I'm waiting and I'm hiding what's going on. I'll put it on my to be read list for Kindle. It's easier for me to read on Kindle. Perfect, Diana. Don't worry, you'll know. If you're signed up to my newsletter, but obviously I'll talk about it on the live, so you'll know. But I promise you, I will be releasing the other formats. I heard the forward. Is that the forward, by the way? The forward. It's probably the nicest part in the book. Let's be honest. Look at that. Forward by the Emmett of the Bennett. Emma of the Bennett. I was very grateful that she wrote that for me. I imagine it is written by a fluid conscious advisor to Thomas. Fluid conscious. You are loved, Flowers. I can't wait for the 27 plot point to be available. I also cannot wait. You don't have you probably do. I've been super excited about this book and I'm so glad. The inside looks fantastic. Like I'm really happy with the layout, the way I got it. Look, the cover, like all the chapters have the tear. I'm really happy with this book so far. Swoon. Stop it. Stop it. Stop. Stop it. Stop. Stop. I haven't brushed my hair either. See, we're the same. We're the same. You don't always have to brush your hair. You just leave it up. You just leave it up. But I can't click on the physical book. Just for that, I'm out. I know. I gotta check. I need my book to be electronical. That's awesome. Thank you. For the Emma thing, I'm sure. Yes. Where will the hardcover be released? Amazon. Yes. Amazon-y donny don 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 don. It will be on Amazon, though businesses could purchase it through the Ingram Sparks. My next book is so excited about your next book. They're gonna hang out. They're gonna like play around together. I didn't even get dressed. Fun fact, neither did I. I'm still wearing my PJs. That's right. I wore my PJs to tell a lesson today. Sue me. Sue me. All right. Oh, we got some updates. Oh, by the way, an update on that artist that didn't answer she's not taking orders until March. So I looked for someone else on Fiverr. Smart move. Sometimes you can't wait around for people. You can't wait around. You got to keep it moving. Keep it moving. Me neither. Snow on the ground. I was going nowhere today. Yeah, as soon as the snow hits the ground, I don't even know where my shoes are anymore. Forget the shoes. I had someone say, do you want me to buy you nice boots so you could like go out in the snow? I said, no, because then I have to go out in the snow. If I don't have the boots, I have an excuse. I could be like, I can't. I don't got boots. Getting dressed is overrated. Yeah. I agree. If I look, you know how like I'm poly and I'm like very like I'm a nudist, like I'm okay with that stuff. I don't understand. Like when I was younger, I used to always be like to my dad and stuff like, why do people care about that or that or that or that or that? Right. And then you like learn other cultures and other European cultures and stuff like that. And it's not like a big deal. Like it's not sexualized. And I think it's like, it's who we are. And it's like a beautiful thing, but obviously it's cold outside. So, I got to wear pants to go to the store. Emma, when that guy asked for your book titles the other day, I think he was testing you. Oh, got a little testing going. Oh yeah, well Emma's written like 15 plus books or something like that. She's fantastically talented. Fiverr is weird. It says one price on their page, and then when I talked to her, she gave me 10 times higher. Yeah, well, that's why I stopped using. I used to have stuff on Fiverr for myself, and then I realized it's not worth it. Yeah, I got out of Fiverr. You have to be comfy to. You have to be completely comfy to write. I agree. I need to get like a standing desk though. I feel like sitting is really not helping me. He's a fan. Is he? Are you guys talking about Richard? Yeah, but I was thinking about getting the standing desk, but we'll see. Peace River Land Packers for boots, good. Oh, negative 35. Again, I don't need information on boots. I do not want to go outside. Anything that makes me have to go outside, I'm not down for that. When I lived in Brooklyn, it was a whole other story, though, because, everything was on the corner. could run downstairs. People used to always be like, "Why don't you buy groceries?" I'm like, "I live in Brooklyn. Like, why do I need? If I want groceries, I gotta walk 3 blocks, 4 blocks, put everything into my cart, then push my cart for 4 or 5 blocks. Then I gotta bring it upstairs. It cost me the same amount of money to buy breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And sometimes I skipped lunch and just went to dinner. It was probably like $12 a day, maybe 15 altogether. And if you think about 15 times 30 is $450. But if I spent, what is it? It's like $120 times 4, 480. I saved money. But it's basically the same thing. And people are always like, you gotta buy, it's cheaper to buy groceries. Not when you live in Brooklyn. I mean, now I can't, I can't just be like, let me order some. We just order online. Amazon has a lot of subscribe and saves. Oh yeah. Like if you just have it on repeat. Yeah. Repeat. That's what I'm here for. Oh, that's right, bro. Yeah, but you don't deliver to where I am. But also, I had to cut back on DoorDash because I sent my information to my accountant, and it was so much money that I spent on DoorDash that it didn't make any sense. Like I was draining my account with that, and I didn't realize it. But when you live in Brooklyn, the pizzeria, the Chinese restaurant, and the deli were literally on the. It was literally on the corner. Like I could just walk maybe 20 feet. If I wanted to change things up, I could go down 2 blocks to another pizzeria, deli, or Chinese food place. If I wanted to change it up again, there were like 4 restaurants on my block, and it was either Mexican, there was an Italian, like an Italian place with an actual chef from Italy, and like they were all every week or every month, whatever, was like a new menu. There was like a nice Italian coffee, a nice, as they say in Italia, a bar, where you get cafe, with the con latte or a cappuccino, and you could get your cornetto. It was nice. I miss Brooklyn. But I did just recently visit a few months ago, and April, and a few months ago, I was like, beginning of the year, in April, and I went to my old neighborhood, and I was like, ugh, this is not where I live. For any other reason other than everybody that was there is gone. They were either because a lot of my neighbors were like old Italian people. They were dead. Anyway, Walmart and our local outlet. That's everybody delivers, so it is nice. It is nice. Nope, you have to pay me a lot to make that drive. It'd be worth it though, because then we could like play cards or something. But that requires you to get dressed. Yeah, I just don't. But the thing is, like, if I go out in Brooklyn, you don't have to get dressed. There are many days that I would have my slippers on. I'd be in my PJs and maybe toss a jacket on, depending. And I would just walk. No one cares in Brooklyn. No one cared. Everybody was like, it was like a neighborhood. Everyone's friends. That's what's cool about living in places like that. Everything is closed like a small village. Yeah, it's all everybody know. All the shop owners know everybody. All the neighbors know everybody. It was really nice, but it was no longer that when I went back. It was 5 years after I had moved there. But yeah. It was nice like that. I do miss that. PJs are loved. That's what I'm saying. I had my Deadpool PJs, Deadpool. What's wrong with a little Deadpool? Like in Cheers, where everybody knows your name. All right. I had a lot of fun today. Oh, by the way, if you haven't done so already, please bloop the beard to bloop the like button. You gotta bloop the beard. Other than that, I think we had a good time. Well, I could shut this down. Close. Yeah. Wear nightgowns. I don't think that would work for me. Well, it is kind of drafty. It depends though. Like if it's summer or spring, it's not too bad. You just keep it like nice and close. Unless it's like one of those chic ones, then then people will give you more free food. They'd be like, "Oh, hey, would you like some peanuts?" Gotta eat those peanuts. Do 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 do. All right, closing out everything. All right, everybody. I had a lot of fun today. It's 4 o'clock. I think it's time for lunch, as they say. This Wednesday and Friday, I do have the pre-records. They are not live, but I will be sitting in and talking on the things, so feel free to jump in and join. But more importantly, I will see you on the weekend for the live. I will keep you up to date on everything that has to do with the books. And other than that, I guess I'll be seeing you. I guess you'll be seeing you. I got Nightmare Before Christmas ones. Oh, you can't beat those. Those are. What's this? What's this? There's something in the air. What's this? What's this? White things everywhere. My favorite song though is Santa Claus. I'm the boogeyman. I like this. The boogeyman. The boogeyman. Man. Thanks for the lesson. Fun times. Bye everyone. Rose. See you later. It is nap time. It's about to go to sleep. Fabulous session. See you 2 weeks from now, Cindy. Have a fabulous time. Much love, as always, to everybody. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza. I keep developing.